All right, Nate, thank you so much. And I do want to stick with some international news right here as we did hit the 11 o'clock hour on the East Coast and 8 o'clock hour on the West Coast. Security around former President Trump was reportedly already heightened last weekend when he was shot at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. And the reason U.S. officials revealed is a threat by Iran to assassinate the 2024 Republican presidential candidate. Iran has denied the claims, though. Want to talk more about this and the Houthi strike that we've been covering over in Tel Aviv Friday. Let's bring in Behnam Ben Taleblu, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, to discuss. Thank you so much for taking the time, as always, to be here with us.
Great to be with you, Josh. Thank you. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Well, first off, I do want to ask you kind of the big question that so many people have been asking over the last several days. Why is it that Iran would want to assassinate former President Trump?
Well, it's not even an open secret. It's something that's just quite open. The regime, for several years since the U.S. killed Qasem Soleimani, Iran's chief terrorist, in January 2020 via a drone strike in Iraq, has re-upped this sort of old world order of blood must wash away blood. Right after that, it was the largest ballistic missile strike the U.S. had received against its forces in history. 16 precision strike short-range ballistic missiles. And then essentially you've had military officials, political officials, and even religious officials re-up a threat to the life of not just former President Trump, but most of his national security team that, if I'm not mistaken, included former National Security Advisor Bolton, former Secretary of State Pompeo, former Special Envoy for Iran, Brian Hook, as well as several other folks in the administration.
And I would imagine this, and you kind of already touched on this here, but this is not the first time that Iran has allegedly put a hit out on an American leader, not necessarily his administration, but a leader overall.
I believe this is the first time they have either quite literally a bounty or a formal standing death threat against a presidential candidate and a former president of the United States at the same time. But here's the problem. We didn't get here by accident. This is a country that has, used lone wolf radicals, proxies, and much more recently, transnational criminal syndicates to carry out acts of terror in 4 continents over the past 4.5 decades. Because they have continued, because they have felt no countervailing pressure, now they have levied a threat. And apparently, per the intelligence that led to the tightening up of security around President Trump, which, just as an American citizen, I'd like to say, was that tightened security? In the aftermath of that, to basically feel comfortable enough to continue to plot and work towards carrying out an assassination attempt on this scale.
And this is probably a tough question to answer, but would you say that Iran is worried about Trump being reelected here?
If I was them, I certainly would be. In record time from 2018 to 2020, the former president did more macroeconomic damage to the Islamic Republic of Iran, whether you look at inflation rates, whether you look at oil exports, whether you look at oil revenues being able to be earned, whether you look at the fact that by credible reporting accounts, they couldn't even pay some of their Shia militias in the region, whether you look at some of their own reporting, they had to shut down some of their satellite or TV propaganda channels during this time. And essentially the whole world opposed this policy. And still, in terms of the effect, it had more effect than about a decade plus of multilateral penalties. So if I was the Islamic Republic, I certainly would be.
And I do want to pop up this live image that we do have right here of the U.S. Capitol in D.C., as we do know that Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is going to visit the U.S. this coming week and address Congress. He's also expected to meet with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Do we know if he's also going to try to meet with Trump in the event that it is possible Trump does become the next president?
Right now, at least, as someone who's an Iran watcher, not an Israel watcher, I would still say it's a bit unclear. I will say, however, if things get a little bit into the tit for tat and the prime minister wants to somehow pay the U.S. back for when the U.S. came to Israel, when the Secretary Blinken in the past few trips came to Israel, he met with some opposition folks and people who had recently left the cabinet. So that could be an option that Bibi may dangle, but who knows? With the new security around the presidential candidate, it could logistically complicate things at the moment for such a short trip.
How important is this U.S. trip for Netanyahu overall? I mean, I know you're more of an Iran watcher than an Israel watcher, but how important is this trip?
Well, I think there is great connective tissue there, and I think he may seek to connect those dots. This is not just another one-off smaller Gaza war. This trip follows, obviously, the largest attack on Jewish people since the end of the Holocaust. This attack was orchestrated by the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, which is America's chief geopolitical rival in the Middle East, that chants death to America and death to Israel for the past 4.5 decades. So I think Bibi Strip is here to connect the dots, to talk about the linkage and the interplay between what's going on with the Houthis in Yemen, the northern front with Hezbollah, the southern front with Gaza, potentially new things that's going on vis-a-vis the West Bank, and also to keep our eyes on the prize, on peace, on transformative things in the region, so potentially an extension of the Abraham Accords as well.
All right, I want to pop this video right up for you here on our screen. We've been covering this over the last 24 hours or so because the Houthis have claimed responsibility for the strike in Tel Aviv that killed one person and injured several others. Now, I want to ask, does the strike raise concerns about, let's say, the reliability of Israel's aerial defense system in the Iron Dome?
Well, on the aftermath of the strike, and first of all, it was another more proof to what the prime minister may be saying. This is an Iran-provided munition. So this is a longer range drone, basically a poor man's cruise missile, a one-way attack drone that had managed to traverse, basically all of the Red Sea, go over all of the U.S. kind of naval monitoring assets that exist there, go over southern Israel, and then hit Israel's major population center, Tel Aviv. And in this instance, reporting has said that it was human error. The Israelis allegedly had seen the drone, had tracked the drone, but had neither given the order to intercept it or ring the alarm or the sirens when it got closer to impact.
My first question when I heard the Houthis had the capability to actually strike Tel Aviv, do the Houthi rebels have, let's say, more powerful weapons than Hamas or Hezbollah? Because I know from reporting on this, it does appear that Hezbollah has more weapons than Hamas, but is that the case where the Houthis have even more weapons?
It depends whose neck the knife is closer to. So certainly vis-a-vis Israel, the quantitative and qualitative military capabilities of Hezbollah are what Jerusalem is going to worry about. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of the entire axis of resistance, this entire terror network that Tehran has either created or co-opted, the Houthis objectively have the most advanced long-range strike capabilities. And that says a lot because Washington hasn't really had a productive Yemen policy, has flip-flopped on calling the Houthis terrorists. Just this week, I think you had General Kurilla from CENTCOM issue his frustrations, I think, in a letter that later went viral across many mainstream media channels, saying that the U.S. wasn't putting all of what it could in to counter the Houthi threat, that after multiple strikes, essentially the Houthis still have the capability to fire these kinds of things. In my view, the general is vindicated right now following the strike that the Houthis had levied against Tel Aviv. But make no mistake, the Houthis are the only proxy of Iran with anti-ship ballistic missiles. They're the only proxy of Iran with medium-range ballistic missiles. And just as we've seen recently, they're able to extend the known ranges, likely with the help of the Islamic Republic, extend the known ranges of some of their drones. This class of drone was allegedly only able to fly about 1,500 kilometers, but the likely air route we assess it took was a little over 2,000 kilometers.
All right, Behnam Ben Taleblu, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and break it all down. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
No, I think we put a cherry on the sundae there. Thanks again, Josh.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.